Good morning and welcome to the August 25th, 2020 meeting of the Paulding County Board of Education. We're so glad you have taken time out of your day to join us this morning. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I would like to invite Jay Cathy of FCA to come forward to the podium and lead us in our invocation and pledge. And if everyone would please stand.
Thank you for having me. Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, you see us. Here we are as a community coming humbly before you, asking for your guidance, not just in this day, but in the days moving forward. We ask for bold leadership and wisdom on behalf of our leaders, school board, district staff, school administration, teachers, parapros, Father, lunchroom workers, cafeteria workers, custodians, maintenance workers, Father. All of us here, Lord, for our children, pre-K up through 12, Father, no one more important than the other. God, we just ask for your wisdom. We ask to seek your face. Father, we know that it's when we get involved with our own opinions and hearts that we fail. God, help us to have a spirit of unity and kindness as decisions are made today, moving forward. And God, ultimately, we thank you for your forgiveness, for the choices that we make that don't honor you, for the times that our words and actions fall short of what you intended for us. God, we ask for your hedge of protection around families and for those who have been sick, for fast healing, Lord. And we thank you so much for these students, and we know that there are leaders of tomorrow, Father. Help us as those of influence to train them up to be the people that you call them to be. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's go forward with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item for today is to adopt the agenda. Do I hear a motion? So moved by Ms. Lyons. Second by Mr. Chester. Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the minutes from August the 11th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Chester. Second by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your hand. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. All right, at this point we have public participation, and we, I believe, have three here. Is Heather Scalzini, are you here this morning? Okay. All right, you can go ahead and come on up to the podium. You were the first to send us a notification. You'll have 5 minutes to address the board. Mr. Cable right here to your right will let you know when you're down to a 1 minute warning, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Heather Scalzetti. Okay.
Mr. Chester?
We don't have it on our public
It's on.
speakers.
It's on here.
Yeah, I know public participation. Name of the speakers, is it on there?
It's on the screen.
Oh,
It's on the
okay.
agenda.
And then, I know you mentioned it last time, but anybody that's speaking can submit their comments in writing. I know you mentioned that last time, and every time we have a speaker that they're not gonna take the full 5 minutes, or they're only gonna take a couple of minutes, that if they got something in writing, they can submit it. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning. I just want to say thank you, for the wonderful job that you guys are doing. I know it's not been easy. It's been putting out a lot of fires, and wanted to say thank you for the job that you're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak again this morning. I previously spoke on July 28th, where I addressed my concerns regarding the virtual learning platform and the further need for communication regarding a parent coordinator, and the growing need possibly for a homeless liaison, just giving the current situation going on in the community with, possible homelessness and what we're facing in the economy. And I would say that a lot has changed in the past month than where we were previously. And I know that we now have an increased number of virtual learners and renters that are either in the process of eviction, or homeowners that are in mortgage forbearance programs. And that's where we are as a community. And we kind of just need to get back to some of the basics of the principles that we've had in the past with PTA associations, and that we need volunteers in the community, that we need the staff and educators and schools and communities to all collaborate, and that the kids need to feel valued and accepted. When families are involved, students do better. We need to empower parents. We need to have specific and actionable things that we all can do to support our students and help them do better. It leads to the students' success. However, we know that when students don't feel connected to the school, that they don't do well. It doesn't help with those achievement gaps. And we've seen this in the past years, with the nationally, not just here in Paulding, with the achievement gaps in literacy and math that we've been trying to fill. And students need to feel that they belong to the school and that the teachers support them. And the most effective types of parent involvement are geared towards not just behavioral, but supervision, but those that are geared towards guiding teens in academic decisions. So how do we do that? What I feel often happens is that we as parents, we're natural teachers. We've been teaching our babies since they were born. We taught them how to, begin eating, right? We taught them how to walk. We taught them, how to begin reading, right? We were their first teachers. And at some point, we gave up. When they went to kindergarten, we said, now it's your job. We sent them to school. And we took ourselves out of the teaching process, and we got busy. And the only time that we were involved was when there were homework, and sometimes we didn't know how to do the homework. So we as parents, we also need to be empowered again on how to teach our kids. And that's what I'm finding in the community, is that a lot of parents don't know how to do that, right? And so we need your guys' help. Also, you have a lot of the framework, right? You've been teaching teachers how to teach for many years, but parents also need to be taught how to teach the kids. So I'm asking for your help to help empower our parents on how to teach the kids so that we can meet our objective. We know that we have the digital initiative of 2020, and I don't want to see any of our kids in the community left behind, because we also need to help empower our parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next we have Clayton Gibson.
Good morning. I would like to start this morning with thanking the school board for allowing me to address them today. I would also like to thank Dr. Otot and his leadership team for navigating this volatile time in our schools. The most thanks that I would like to bestow would be upon the administrators and staff of all the schools in Paulding County. I cannot even begin to explain the gratitude I have for those frontline staff members who are risking their lives and their own families' lives to ensure that our children of Paulding County are able to have as much of a normal school experience as possible. With all that said, I'd like to use my time today to express my desire for Paulding County School District to enact a required mask mandate. The Center for Disease Control has recommended as recently as last week that masks, used properly, are effective at slowing the spread of COVID-19. On August 11, 2020, the CDC also released a guideline plan for all schools that planned on reopening for face-to-face instruction. This plan included masks, social distancing, washing hands, and daily disinfecting with cleaning. It is true that because this virus is still so new that we don't know enough about it to make many definitive statements. But one statement that is definitive is that COVID can be spread to others if you are infected, even if you are not showing signs. As a result, a mask mandate is necessary to ensure that even those people who feel like they are perfectly healthy are not spreading the virus unknowingly. In addition to the CDC recommending masks as an effective way to slow the transmission of COVID, the World Health Organization and the National Institutes of Health all recommend proper mask wearing. I understand, as does the CDC in their guidelines, that there are extenuating circumstances for requiring masks, such as those with underlying medical concerns. The guidelines presented by the CDC are thorough enough to assuage any concerns parents and staff members might have. I strongly encourage everyone to visit the CDC website to look at the school reopening guidelines presented there. If these esteemed and incredibly valued medical institutions are not able to sway this board into mandating a mask requirement, then I'm not sure what possibly could. The other topic that I would like to speak to today is the importance of face-to-face instruction over virtual learning. Classroom instruction is a tried and true form of education that has recently seen its growth and evolution become forefront in the world discussion about learning methods. It is widely accepted that all students learn differently. Some prefer auditory, some visual, some kinetic, some a hybrid. The point of that is that face-to-face instruction is incredibly essential to ensure that all learning styles are able to be properly addressed. As a former teacher, I'm acutely aware of the fact that I had to create daily lesson plans that tailored to my students' abilities and learning styles. When I failed, I noticed it was because of my inability to adapt my own teaching styles for them, whereas when I succeeded is when I was able to adjust my styles accordingly based on what I witnessed in the classroom. This is even more incredibly important for those students with learning disabilities who are on special education plans. These special education classrooms and accommodations are made specifically with face-to-face instruction in mind, and to lose that part of the education process would be an immeasurable loss for hundreds of students in Paulding County. I understand that virtual learning is an up-and-coming form of instruction that's going to be absolutely vital in the next coming years and decades. Unfortunately, it's still in its infancy. Many growing pains are evident with virtual learning. It needs time to be perfected with more research. These students going through the system now are not the ones to trial this system. These are unprecedented times, and to force students into virtual learning only landscape would hamper the development of so many students. This does not even take into account the fact that many parents are unable to do virtual learning. The economy we live in today makes it necessary for most households to have both parents work full-time jobs away from the house.
Mr. Gibson, about 1 minute.
Thank you. This creates undue burden on those parents who then have to either attempt to do virtual learning during off hours or resort to the packet or worksheet system that was in place at the end of last school year. Simply having students fill out some worksheets in lieu of face-to-face instruction is not even close to an equivalent. I can speak personally to this as my children had to do the worksheets last year. Every day so far this year, my children have come home from school and the first question I ask them is, how was your day? Every day, both of my children said, amazing. The best day ever. I cannot imagine having to tell them that school has closed again, and now they must do virtual learning or the worksheets. It's my belief, based on my experience as a former teacher and as a parent of students in Paulding County, that our teachers currently working in the schools would greatly favor for the district to stick to face-to-face instruction, with virtual as an option, not a requirement. This board needs to make sure to listen to the people who are working frontline every day, the teachers, These incredibly brave people are the backbone to this community and are teaching the future leaders of our nation. We need to listen to them and respect them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Thank you. All right, and lastly, we have Erica Littlejohn.
Thank you for your time this morning, and thank you for all that you do, and thank you, Dr. Otot. I know that we've had a couple side conversations as well. But what I'd like to do this morning is I also would like to talk about the virtual academy and choices. We each had a choice of virtual or in-person learning. Over the few weeks that school has been in session, I have sat back, observed, and watched how all this was going to play out. Our choice for our family was virtual, as others were in-person learning. It appears that all the attention and resources have been geared towards solving the issues for the in-person learning and not for the virtual. My child's education is just as important as those who are sitting there in the classroom. Since virtual has started, there has been no structure or schedules to the classes. The kids just go online and they're given worksheets, they're given YouTube videos to learn off of, and sometimes they will do a Zoom class if it works, but it's never consistent. So they're pretty much teaching themselves. Teachers are available sometimes at certain times for questions, but it's not consistent. For example, we had a math class that the kids were using YouTube videos to learn and lessons were just posted. The teacher had 2 sessions scheduled with the kids for which she never showed up. The 3rd session that she finally showed up in, she was 25 minutes late, and for those children that waited on that session for her, they were told they only had 10 minutes of her time. That's unacceptable. Then they were told that they needed to go and take their test, which most of them did not do very well on because they didn't get their questions answered. Now, I think somebody found out about that because that teacher has changed. However, those kids are still now recovering in that class for those grades when they did not understand the material. I have a student at the high school level. He's in 10th grade. He has been in the gifted program in all honors classes since 5th grade, and last year came out with a 4.2 GPA. He is suffering this semester because of the lack of teaching and learning that is being provided in the virtual environment. I should not have to put not only my child, but the life of our family members, because he has to come home to us in the household at risk with COVID just because we chose virtual. I understand when we went out last March that virtual was new and there was gonna be some challenges through it. But I did expect by this school year, some of those kinks to at least have been worked out. And it appears most of them have not been. Students should be we should be doing better for all our students, not just the ones that are in the school building. We just feel left out alone in the virtual world. I encourage this board to work with all the citizens of Paulding County to fix the conditions of the virtual environment. You gave us all a choice. Some chose in person, some chose virtual, and we all should be able to work through this, and the kids should not suffer, no matter what our choice was. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Littlejohn.
All right, thank you all for speaking to us this morning. And as Mr. Chester said, if you did not finish, you can submit your the rest of your speech or your comments in writing, and we'll put those in the minutes, okay? Next, we'll go ahead and move into Student Success for All, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Otot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank all the group who came out and spoke this morning. We sincerely appreciate your feedback and your support of the district, and know that we hear you, and sincerely, again, appreciate you coming out and sharing with us today. The first item on our agenda in Student Success for All is a discussion of school calendars. Believe it or not, the last time we talked about this was in February of 2020, And we have yet to approve our 2021-22 or 2022-23 calendars. Mr. Maggart is going to review those two options, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but we have provided a digital learning option within one of those calendars. So, Mr. Maggart, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you could just kind of provide us an overview, maybe even talk about our process with the survey and so forth as well.
Thank you, Dr. Otot. Seems like forever ago, we put out a survey, and we had nearly 8,000 respondents. 376 of those were community members. We had, 5,059 were parents of Paulding County School District, and then we had about 1,324 teachers who responded, along with 485 students, and it was pretty clear they liked our current schedule. They like having the winter break. They like having the fall break. They like having the complete week during the Thanksgiving, as well as spring break. So it really didn't change as we went through the survey. We did build in a digital learning day. If you'll look at the second set of calendars on October the 15th, we did put in a digital learning day. But by and large, this is the same calendar that we've used for years, and the community likes it. I know it's been a test here lately with all the COVID, but the calendar is pretty much the same as it's been in the past.
I wanted to give the board an opportunity to share feedback and know that when we put a digital learning day on the calendar, that is still a student attendance day. And we'd like to at least dip our toes in, all supposing next year that we have a traditional year with a digital learning day during that week of conference weeks. Digital learning will also allow us in inclement weather to allow students to continue to access content and us continue to operate for them in those set of circumstances. So I just wanted to open up the board for any discussion. My recommendation would be to incorporate the digital learning day into our traditional calendar, but wanted to get y'all's feedback on the incorporation of those days or not to have them in future calendars.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, we'll have both the 2021-22, 2022-23 calendars on the action agenda for our meeting in September, and again with the recommendation of adding a digital learning day in both of those calendar years during that week. But again, I know people are, yes?
Real quick question. Is there a reason why we're approving calendars 2 and 3 years out with is it a state requirement or?
No, it's not, but really we get a tremendous amount of feedback from our community as they try to plan for their families. As a matter of fact, this is one of the most common calls we get.
Bringing it to the board for approval, I think is a different story.
Right.
I think there's too many variables for us to actually be approving a calendar that far out.
My only response to that was we do need to have a base to work from.
I would say use these for a base, but I wouldn't bring it before the board for approval.
Ms. Cobb?
Well, in the past, that was something that the community in the last 5 to 10, 15 years had wanted. They wanted to place it in advance because
Yes.
we can always, but it has had to be
And
altered.
we have had to alter it over the years.
Alter it, but at least they have a plan to go by. So if they're planning vacations, weddings, that kind of stuff, they can plan. If we end up having school, we end up having school. But, you know, the majority of the time we wouldn't. So that's what they asked for. So that's what we need.
I agree 100%. They should have a baseline to work for, but I believe it's redundant work for us to be sitting here voting for it over and over again, especially with as many unknowns as we've got.
Well,
It's too fluid.
Our policy
We
requires
can't even finish
board
this
approval.
year's calendar
Yeah.
out.
In addition, Mr. Dean, our policy on calendars does require approval. Right. I hear you.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
submit these to the state every year as well.
And I can tell you too, as a parent of kids in the school system, it does help out tremendously to know a couple years out if you want to book a cruise or a Disney vacation or whatever. So it is good to know.
Quick question. I know years before we did the community survey, before the board approved the calendars. Did the system do that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we did this year.
Yeah, we-
Actually, it would have been last year. But with everything that happened, the last time we presented this, I believe, was probably the morning meeting in February.
Right.
And since then, of course, so much has changed, and we're just bringing this back for everybody's review so we can get it approved.
And that leads me to the second thing. Is it possible in the time frame before September to at least do another survey of administrators, community, the public, if we could? I don't want to slow down the process though, but so much has changed since last survey was done. I'm just a little leery of taking that data from that period and bringing it forward and saying this is what the community supported, because a lot has changed. So even if it's just some administrators or staff or however the district wants to do it, just another small sampling. If the board could have it to say, okay, we know this is what the community said they wanted, this is what we've traditionally done. Is there a way to do another small sampling so the board knows, okay, this is still what the community wants?
If that's the will of the board, we can use the exact same survey that was sent out. It'll be time sensitive, though. We can't leave it open too long because we won't have the results back.
And it doesn't have to be the exact same, but even a sampling of, okay, our community is still in line with this, because this is a big issue, it's a big thing for our community, because they plan off of it, budgets are planned off of it, daycares are planned off of it, vacations as well, work schedule. So calendars are a big issue, and you know that. So anything we could have in terms of more data, be better.
And I would just say in response to that, like said Mr. Chester, if the board would like me to issue another survey, I will say we've had very consistent results over the years, and it's been strongly in favor of both the fall and winter breaks. But if that is the direction the board like me to do, we can probably get a survey out, this week. Just really.
When do you need it by?
Well, I would like to bring this before the board at our September 8th meeting.
What does the policy say that we have to do it by?
We have
And what
to,
is-
no, I don't think it has a date. We just have to approve our calendars.
I don't think there's any deadline there, because that's a year away on most of this stuff. And to be honest, with this virus out, I don't see how we can plan. Really, we don't know a firm baseline of what we're going to be doing in January. It's too fluid to be, in my opinion.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, we do need a survey, like Nick said, and I agree with the holidays and stuff, but I just think that there's too many dynamics in this for us to be.
I have a question.
It's not required.
Mr. Dean or Mr. Chester, either one can speak to this. Virus or no virus, how does that affect spring break, winter break, fall break? I mean, do you think that parents and teachers aren't going to want to take those because we may be doing something? I mean, I'm lost on y'all's.
In our school format to do that.
But how would that affect? How does that affect breaks?
We may be working through those breaks because of the virus.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What I would say is I do not know if it will or will not, but it's never a bad idea to go back to the community and ask.
I agree. I just don't see parents or teachers wanting to do away with spring break, winter break, fall break just because we're on digital learning. I don't think that those comments even really make sense, but that's just my opinion. But
I don't think that there's a need to sit here and vote on having a calendar 2 years out for right now, when we all agree that we should have those spring breaks.
Mr. Dean, I would like to say that I've been waiting for a while. This is nothing new. We've been doing this. I've only been on the board for 12 years, but we typically do this, and it's always subject to change, and it's subject to, the surveys that we put out. So it really is nothing new. So, I mean, it's worked in the past, and if we've had to make changes, we've made changes, and I support going ahead and moving forward with it, but I don't think it's something that we should stress out too much about, because it is subject to public input.
That's my exact comments on why I don't think that we should actually even be bringing it up right now. I don't think we should stress out over it either. We have some more important things to do than sit here and vote on the calendar, in my opinion, especially when you're 2 years out. and with a, like Nick said, where we should have a survey done. I see no emergency that we need. We have several things like virtual academy, communications and stuff that we need to be addressing. This calendar is a formality to me. We're not going to change the dates, and we can put it out for a working format. But it's up to the board's vote. I would not support it.
Well, at this point, Dr. Otot and his staff have already worked on the calendar, so all the legwork has already been done. So taking a 30-second vote, I don't think is taking time away from other issues that we're faced with. But it's, you know, I would go ahead and recommend bringing it before the board, and the ones that want to vote no on the calendar, let them vote no, and the ones that want to vote yes. But I don't see any point in delaying the process any further. You know, as part of the board, whether we're in a pandemic or not, we still have other operational things that we have to get done, and I don't think a 10-second vote on a calendar is going to make one difference either way. But Ms. Cobb, did you have a comment as well?
Well, yeah, it's not on the active agenda for today. I do think we do need to discuss it. I don't see it changing a lot, but at the same fact, you guys know I'm always for input. So, you know, I agree with Mr. Chester. If we want to put something else out there just to see, just to verify that the community still wants these breaks, I do think it's important, you know, not just for vacations and stuff. It's important for the people who rely on our child care, who, you know, may not be going on vacation, but they require child care when we have breaks. So those kind of things are why we need to do it a year or two out. So our partners in the community can, that help us with child care when school's out, can do that. I understand it may be a lot different, but we do need to have some kind of baseline. It's our job to represent our community and set up these things ahead of time, and they may have to be changed, and we've learned a lot that's had to be changed. But we need to go on and do something in the next month or so, and get feedback. We could still change it after the feedback comes in.
That's right.
So
It is always amendable.
there may be something on that survey that we want to add and keep it out a little bit longer, but we can change it after that, but we need to put something out there.
Well, then, what we'll do this week is we'll look at the survey we issued in November, reissue it for a shorter window, get feedback, bring that to you to the board prior to any vote.
Thank you, Dr. Otot.
No problem. Moving into communication and engagement, as a point of information, we do have our fundraiser report for you again, and these are those that are submitted by our schools and approved through the school leadership department. If there are any questions there. Not, we'll move on to organizational excellence, and I'd like to invite Mr. Barnett to come forward. He's going to share our monthly financial report, our quarterly financial report, and also a point of information regarding a Publix donation to our district.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today is actually our last presentation last internal financial presentation to the board for FY20. We do have our regular monthly financial update. Really, those two things overlap each other. So those are over there on the banister, and then of course all this will be available on the internet today on our website. So I'll focus in on the quarterly financial report. I did want to mention that the quarterly financial presentation on the screen, but the quarterly financial report, which looks like this, will actually also be on the website, and folks can pull it down. Again, some folks prefer the one page as opposed to the 40 or 50 pages of the full quarterly report. So that's there for someone to grab if they would like. As far as the presentation, just our goal here is just to give a brief update on those quarterly financial statements. I will mention that, of course, all this is pending year-end and audit entries, but I do think we've dialed in pretty close to what we think FY20 will look like at the end. But before we get into the numbers, just want to thank Tiana Hogan, a third grader at Abney Elementary, for her artwork that's gracing the cover of our quarterly report. We'll send a special thank you out to her and appreciate her artwork making this a little more palatable, all these numbers. So thank you, Tiana. So looking at the general fund and just starting with the revenue, the amended revenue budget for FY20 ended at $298.3 million. It's actually close to the original budget, only a minor increase of around $400,000, about 0.1%. Looking at actual results, year-to-date revenues came in at $298.1 million. That's 99% of the budget. Again, only 0.1% variance, so we came in right in line where we would expect on the revenue side. The real story, as you know, is the expenditure side of the general fund. The amended budget for expenditures for the year was $299.7 million. That's an increase of about $1.8 million. And I will mention, of course, the board is aware of this, but the board approves an original budget. In fact, we just did for FY21, the board did. And during the course of the year, there'll be multiple adjustments that happen to the budget. And then we refer to that budget from that point on as the amended budget, or you may hear the working budget. But what's driving that $1.8 million, I wanted to mention, those adjustments really related to grants. As the board knows, we start the year being very conservative when it comes to grants, because we want to start there, and then if we get the awards we hope for, we'll adjust the budget from there, and that's exactly what happened. And that especially is true for title programs. And so we've done that. There's also been a year-end entry that is typical for us, an on-behalf entry related to the Department of Education. That also increases the budget as well this time of year. Again, very typical year in that regard. What is might be not typical is the actual expenditures that we report year-to-date for FY20. We came in at $291.9 million. It's about 97.4% of the budget. So that leaves a variance to budget of 2.6%, or around $7.8 million. And I will mention again, we've talked a lot about this during the course of the budget presentation for FY21, but the variances you see by function are over there to the far right on the chart. I will tell you that, as the board knows, March 13th, we entered into an emergency spending plan because the idea was that, all that was going on, we just didn't know what FY21 would look like. And as it turns out, as things sort of deteriorated and we absorbed a large austerity cut for FY21, we knew that it would be wise to go into FY21 with as much fund balance as we possibly could. And so it's typical, I would say this is true of any year. I think this district does a great job managing their spending. We are not one of those environments where, well, it's in the budget, I'm going to spend it so I get it next year. That may be typical in other areas, but that's just never been true of Paulding County since I've been here. And so we continue just to make wise decisions, really the same wise decisions we were making had there never been a pandemic. But as a result of that, we had several objects that came in, several functions that came in well under budget. I thought I'd just give the board and the community the top 5. This really isn't indicative of the functions you see there. This is across all those functions you see. So the number one area where we came in under budget, as you might guess, is energy. Came in around $1.1 million under budget related to energy. Of course, that's electricity, water, and gas. The second was equipment. We came in right at $1 million under budget in equipment purchases. Supplies was number 3. Professional services were number 4. And really another flavor of professional services, repair and maintenance services, came in at number 5. You add those 5 up, and you're coming at around $4 million. So that accounts for $4 million, which is about 70% of the non-payroll related expenditures. So those 5 really are driving the savings for the year. On the payroll side, really we continue to pay our employees. Where you really saw savings was, as you would imagine, subs, and the fact that we didn't have as many substitutes in FY20. And this isn't a payroll expense, but professional services, again, is not necessarily payroll related, but it did go down as well. So just wanted to mention that because it all feeds into fund balance. And so at the end of the year for FY20, we see, of course, at the beginning there, it's again saying that year-to-date revenues exceeded expenditures by that $6.2 million you saw on the previous screen. After all other sources and uses, fund balance decreased $3.6 million. We came to rest at $50.5 million, of which $43.5 million is unassigned. Of course, the difference between those two numbers, unassigned, just means it's not been assigned for a specific purpose. And so whatever that purpose is, it can be as restrictive as a legal obligation, or it could just be something that we have restricted for some purpose for a particular use. So what remains is just unassigned, available funds for the district. So that's 43.5. And so really the best way to explain this story is that graph there, that gauge at the bottom left. Board, remember, our minimum target is 1.5 months. Our upper band of our target is always 1.8 months. And those two numbers really just represent 12.5% versus 15% of our budget. And we came in right at that 1.8 months, which is exactly where we wanted to be. And of course, the reason for that is we wanted to be on the upper end of that band because we know because the board's approved the budget, we're going into FY21 needing to go into fund balance by about $5 million. And so we needed, really the ultimate goal was how much can we get into fund balance at the end of 20, because we know we're going to cut into fund balance in 21. And so we'll add $7 million to fund balance, but we'll turn around and spend $5 million in FY21. So that leaves us after that activity at about 1.6 months in fund balance, which is, again, we're above our minimum, which is where we want to go. And so I think the way we ended the year was right on track with what we wanted. With that, I can kind of pass through this one at 1.8. You see that there. It's just kind of redundant. Again, our fund balance will continue to decline into the fall. And we'll get to the point where we're just a few weeks worth of fund balance available for us. And so the whole reason behind that 1.5 is that's sort of the sweet spot we've developed, that we know if we go too much below that, we're going to have to borrow money in October to make it through until the tax revenues start coming in. So shifting gears again back to revenue, this is a percentage variance to the budget for revenue. And of course, the blue line just represents a 0% variance to budget. The red line is the 3-year average. The green line is FY20. And then the chart over to the right just represents FY19 against FY20. The story here is on the revenue side, again, very, very close, whether you look at a 3-year average, you look at last year. The 3-year average is right at 0.2%. You can see there FY19 is 0.3%, and then FY20 came in at just 0.1% under. So right on track on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, exact same chart here, just expenditures. And again, if you look at that 3-year average, we were at 1.6%. 3-year average, again, is that red line you see there. So we ended at 1.6% variance. In FY19, we're at 1.3% variance. So again, pretty consistent as far as, and it's one of the reasons we track to our trend is we want to, that's how we can best spot anomalies in our spending patterns. But if you look at FY20, it jumps to 2.6%. So our target every year for this metric is under 2%. But of course, we knew we were going to exceed that and really wanted to, in a way, exceed that to prepare for FY21. But that 2.6%, again, compared to the red line, the average, let's say, for the last 3 years is about $4 million. So just, again, give you sort of an idea of where we came in at the end of FY20 on the general fund. Shifting gears to the capital projects fund and just a few highlights related really to SPLOST 5. We have collected cumulatively at the end of the fiscal year, which is of course June 30th, $72.7 million. Our cumulative variance to our projections is $4.4 million, around 6.5%. And we are above our minimum fund balance right now at around $5.5 million. Did want to show the board these two charts. The top one really is just a cumulative SPLOST collections versus a cumulative projection graph. And really all I'm highlighting there is the consistency. We are running on average, in fact, this prior year, we ran an average of about 5.5% above projections, and we ended the year at 6.5%. So we've been very consistent in that regard. The chart, though, on the bottom, or really kind of the middle, it's kind of small, hard to see, so I tried to zoom into to the last quarter. So what this is showing you is the monthly SPLOST collections compared to the prior year and compared to our projections. And so that blue line you see there, that is the FY20 collections. The red line, again, is FY19 collections. And the sort of the gray line you see there is our projections. The first two, again, are collections numbers. So just kind of focusing in a little bit there on that last month you see there in the bottom chart, June. So in June, we actually, again, came in above projections and came in above last year's collections for SPLOST. We've had this conversation, of course, with the board regarding just the impact of the pandemic and how when you have 70% of your residents, working residents that travel outside the county for work, when you see that disrupted, they tend to spend more money locally, which is what's driven up some of our SPLOST collections. Not materially necessarily, but we didn't see the impact, which is, again, a good positive thing for us. So that delta between the blue line, essentially, and last year, the red line, is about $172,000 in July. The delta between the blue line and our projections is around $380,000. So how long that will continue, I don't know, but it'll obviously at some point normalize as folks kind of return to their normal work, patterns and so forth. But just looking at the cumulative activity for SPLOST 5, again, the inflows at the bottom right there, $96.5 million. Looking at the outflow section, we spent $38.5 million, again, cumulatively in SPLOST 5 on capital projects. Around $8.7 million of that came as a reimbursement from the Georgia Department of Education. We spent $30.7 million in debt service. And of course, we've had other items, which is primarily loan activity, interfund loan activity you see there. We come to rest then again at that $14.4 million in fund balance in the capital projects fund. Shifting to the debt service fund, and just a quick highlight there, we ended the year FY20 at $81.7 million. We spent around $3.8 million in interest, $4.5 million in principal. Since we refunded the debt, we've actually saved $3.7 million, headed toward a total of $9.1 million. I will say when we did refund, which was in 14, the bond debt of the district was $102 million. And again, we ended FY20 at 81.7. So another byproduct of refunding that debt is the ability to pay it off sooner, and we continue to push toward that. And then I just wanted to highlight some other sections that are in the quarterly report. If you're interested, more information on special revenue funds, which are grants, the local school activities, school nutrition, that sort of thing. A lot of those grants we're still closing out, so there certainly will be entries related to those as we finish up the year. There's a lot of supplemental reports in there, position control, current enrollment numbers, procurement related and grant and donation related points of information. And of course, details on those budget adjustments that I mentioned at the very beginning. And of course, an appendix to help kind of help you figure out some of those terms we use that are hard to understand or remember. So with that, I'll just say, thank you. It's the next time you'll hear about FY21 will be the results of the audit, which have already began. So again, everything will be online. If it's not already, it'll be there by the end of the day. And I will mention that our feedback portal is up and running for the FY22, hard to believe, budget. And so we're already taking feedback in related to that, or feedback on the 21 budget as well, whatever folks would like to comment on. So that is up and running. And with that, Dr. Otot, I believe I am done.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Barnett on the quarterly report? Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Would you mind sharing a little information about Publix? Again, this is a donation that meets criteria of a point of information to our board, and I'd just like to say in advance our appreciation for Publix supermarkets and their support of our teachers.
Yeah, so as the board knows, its policy is that any donation or grant greater than $50,000 we bring to the board. It's a requirement of board policy. This is just under that. It's $38,000, but we thought it was material enough and important enough that we wanted to draw it out. It is in the quarterly report because all of those sorts of things wind up in the quarterly report. But yeah, definitely on July 29th, Publix and the Empty Stocking Fund donated school supplies to the district. Again, the value of that total around $38,000. It's all sorts of items that the board can read there in the notes, the summary for the point of information. But again, we just want to thank Publix. We want to thank the Empty Stocking Fund. Those donations, that does not go, none of our donations to the district go unnoticed. They're all important, and we really appreciate what they did for us in a difficult time. So we will, again, continue to bring, whether they cross the $50,000 threshold or not, we'll continue to bring donations to the board that we believe are noteworthy or exceptional. And that's really all I have, Dr. O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett.
Thanks.
We have 3 procurement items that I'd like to add to our agenda for our September 8th meeting. The first is IFB 21-200713, Lawncare Services. And just to remind the board, as part of our FY21 budget, we did actually reduce our landscaping department and increased our amount of contract services. So at this point, this would include all of our campuses as part of this RFP. And my recommendation at that board meeting would be to award that contract to Georgia Green Landscaping Services for a period of September 20th through December 2020. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to Hearing none, next is RFP 21-200720, Independent Performance Audit for SPLOST. This is our annual audit of our SPLOST account, and we would like to recommend at that meeting that we award that to Sorota, Maddox, and Evans, CPA, to do that audit at a financial impact of $5,000. There's no questions there. The last procurement item would be ITV 20-190910, tires and retreads. This would be a renewal of that contract, which is currently awarded to Atlanta Commercial Tire of Forest Park, Georgia, and it'd be from a period of October 2020 to September of 2021. If there are questions.
A couple of months ago, we discussed a revision to the vendor policy, and I believe Mr. Barnett was working on putting together some additional data for us. Can we get an update on that?
Sure.
Dr. Kennedy?
Absolutely. The final item under organizational excellence is our asset disposal report for September of 2020. I move that this be placed on our agenda for September 8th. You will see there's a number of technology items on there, specifically laptops. The technology department did a wonderful job. They were only able to salvage a little over 5 of those computers. The rest were too damaged in order to be able to use. But once we dispose of those, we will make those available to students who need them. But again, a lot of these were in extremely poor condition, and we salvaged those that were salvageable, and we will provide those to students in need of computers. So if there are no questions on asset disposal, Mr. Chairman, I can move on to Superintendent's Report. Well, one, I want to thank again everyone who came out this morning, not only to watch the meeting, but also to participate publicly. We do sincerely appreciate your feedback and know that we listen to you, and thank you again for sharing with us. I do want to share some good things with you guys this morning. First of all, many of you remember a story. We had 3 South Paulding High School students, Ryan Seymour, Kai Keller, and Pearson Blair, who actually helped rescue a dog and a child from a home that was on fire in that community. And we're very proud of those students for their altruism and courage in doing that. But I also wanted to share with the board that to celebrate them, Academy surprised each of those students, Academy Sporting Goods, with a $250 gift card. All 3 of them played on the South Paulding football team, and they also gave the South Paulding football team a $2,500 gift card to use to support the program, which I think is just awesome. I just went through the asset disposal report with the board. I want to take a minute to highlight one of our employees who just does a phenomenal job. That's Marilyn Walker. She is our warehouse supervisor, and she does such an amazing job. And I'm going to give you an example. You'll see that there were smart boards on this report for asset disposal. She has generated over $20,000 in revenue by selling these through Gov Deals. So she is actually taking those that are serviceable, putting them on Gov Deals, and just in those alone, she has brought in $20,000 for the district. But she doesn't stop there, and as we were going through the warehouse the other day, she'll take old equipment, and anything we have that has a battery, she recycles battery, she recycles textbooks, and also does a phenomenal job at repairing furniture. So Marilyn does a great job, and I just wanted to take a second to thank her and the entire warehouse staff for the phenomenal job they do supporting our kids, getting materials out to them, but also saving the district money. And we talk about grants. I just want to showcase one more. Leroy Goodwin at Paulding County High School. He is the the auto mechanics teacher there. He has got another grant for his program as he's working to move also into collision and repair. He had a clearing station for his paint shop donated by a vendor in the value of $8,000, but Leroy is always another one who's looking for ways that he can improve his program through grants. I would like to talk a little bit about district news. Of course, I want to give everyone a COVID-19 update. For the community, if you're not aware, we are posting our number of positive cases weekly on our website. They will be posted each Friday at 5 p.m., and they are for the preceding week. We're also sending notifications home at any point there's a positive test within a school, that is staff and students. And as of our last report, and we break that report down by each school, we had 46 positive reports from the period of Friday, August 14th at 5 p.m. to Friday, August 21st at 5 p.m., and that was a decrease from the previous week. I know we've talked about masks this morning, but I strongly encourage our staffs and students to wear those, and we're seeing much better results with our masks, and we appreciate our students and staff participating. And that just kind of segues me into something that happened over the last 2 weeks, and that is the hybrid schedule. And I wanted to let our community know what factors go in looking at a school who might transition to a hybrid. And when we shared our plan with the board, we said every situation is different. Each one of our 33 schools is different. But some of the factors we look at are: 1, school size, class sizes within the school, rate of positive reports of COVID, staffing and support, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, the layout of the facility, as well as conversations with the local principals. What we're really looking for in a hybrid model is to encourage sustainability of that school remaining open to provide face-to-face instruction for students. And we are monitoring all of our schools and making decisions based on those individual campuses. Again, sustainability is the key. We want to be able to continue to offer face-to-face instruction. Each of the 3 schools, which are North Paulding High School, South Paulding High School, and McClure Middle, are operating on a schedule of alternating days: Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and they're working Fridays in small group and tutoring digitally with those students. North Paulding High School, you all know, is our largest school. Between students and staff, still had over 2,000 students on that campus. And for sustainability purposes and to lower that class size, we did go to a hybrid model actually beginning last week. The 2 new schools that will be transitioning, South Paulding will be transitioning on Wednesday to a hybrid schedule, has nearly 1,400 students in that school, more than that with staff. Again, many of the same issues, and something I'm going to mention to the board here is something we need to be aware of. Staffing plays a key role in that because we're also having a challenge identifying substitutes. That is an area, and we encourage anyone who has an interest in being a substitute teacher for the district. We have a process. We'd love to have you join our ranks because we certainly need a strong supply of substitutes for our schools. And McClure Middle School is our largest middle school, has over 1,200 students at it, including our students and staff. And just to give you an idea of the scope of what McClure is dealing with and why transitioning to a hybrid was felt like to be the correct approach, the next largest middle school in our district right now has 600 students in it, actually less than 600. So McClure is nearly double in size. There were square footage and facility issues there, as well as class size situations that we felt were appropriate for a hybrid. And the other thing I want to tell our community is, as we monitor these, we have that flexibility to move back into a traditional non-hybrid situation, but really being proactive in identifying those schools that have the most challenges so we can continue to offer that face-to-face option for our families. One thing I'd encourage our board and our community to stay in touch with, I'd mentioned staffing a couple times. You've seen a lot of discussion about essential infrastructure and having teachers be identified as essential employees, which would allow them to, if they were asymptomatic, they could come to work with temperature checks, and if they were wearing a mask, because again, that is one area that I see as we go through this. Staffing will continue to be something we need to evaluate. I'd ask our board to pay close attention both at the federal and the state levels of steps towards that, but I will keep you posted as well. The other thing I wanted to share this morning is our numbers and our PVA programs. We will have everybody in PVA, probably the exception of a few, at the very latest by tomorrow, but we're up to 3,850 elementary students being served virtually, 2,646 middle school students, and 3,203 high school students being served virtually. And on top of that, the high school is also serving 503 eighth graders who are taking high school coursework. So I want to thank all of our virtual teachers, our virtual administrators who are supporting it, but those numbers are significant in terms of our virtual servings, or serving students in virtual. I did also want to let the board know that I've been in contact with GSBA in reference to a potential work session on September 21st. The morning of that meeting really would revolve around informational as we approach our new strategic planning cycle, as well as other elements we may identify from our self-assessment, and those are available to you on Assembly if you have not had a chance to look yet. The other thing I just ask is thoughts and prayers This weekend, we lost former Superintendent Jim Jordan. His son Jody, of course, and Cindy both work in the district, but Jim was a superintendent in the early 80s, and anyone who met him know he never met a stranger. So please keep Jim in your thoughts and prayers and remember him for his service to the Paulding County School District. And in closing, I would just like to thank the staff and students of this district. You guys are amazing. All of our teachers, our support staff, everyone who goes about their business supporting kids, you are very much appreciated. Mr. Chairman, that's my superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Otot. At this time, we'll move into board member comments and won't go in any particular order. If anyone has anything to say? Mr. Chester?
I just want to, speaking to the microphone first, say thank you to our visitors and speakers and people that are following online. Given everything that's going on, I know how difficult it is to get somewhere in person and speak on any subject. So whether agree or disagree, just thank you to all those folks who participate in our process. Also want to say thank you to all our administrators and teachers and everyone out there working. I think regardless of the designation, everyone that helps our community and helps us educate our children are essential people, and they're part of the essential infrastructure. So I wanted to say thank you to all those individuals. I want to say thank you to all the Hiram Hornet family. I know that all those individuals are doing great things. They're putting together the lesson plans, and every morning they're getting up and going through the process with our children. And that's on the high school, middle, and elementary level. So I'm personally appreciative of it. I know the rest of our board is appreciative of it. And we have a lot of great people doing great things. We can't recognize every single one of them, but you're in our thoughts and our prayers, and our community is thankful for what you do. And I just want to remind everyone, including our community, that it's been almost 90 years now, but the Hiram Rosenwald Museum was founded and established in Hiram, and it's still standing, and it was one of the only African-American schools that had a library, and that was in 1930. So every year I go over there. I've taken my sons, and they have fundraisers, and I know they've come and spoken at some of our board meetings, but it's just a reminder to our community that the thirst for education is not going to be quenched by a virus, and it's not going to be put out. There's always been difficult learning circumstances, and we've overcome a lot of them. So just continue to do what you're doing. Things will get better. We pray for you, pray for our community, and we appreciate everything the community does. Hang in there.
First of all, I want to say thank you from South Paulding and Paulding County High School for the masks. That was very thoughtful for you to think of us. I also want to say thank you to all the staff for your heart to serve the families of Paulding County School District. I know that everyone appreciates everything that you do. And I have to mention the Boys and Girls Club again. I'm going to ask Dr. Otot to speak on it for a second, but I do want to say that if you want to help the this is basically Save the Boys Club time, Boys and Girls Club time right now, because we have down to 2 months or less than 2 months to raise enough money and complete a 5-year sustainability plan to save the Boys and Girls Club. And I want Dr. Otot to talk about the impact that the Boys and Girls Club has on the students of Paulding County District, because we do bus 3 different schools, students from 3 different schools there, and they're able to receive an after-school care as well as activities and the things that they do. But can you, Dr. Otot, mention that?
Absolutely. I think the Boys and Girls Club is one of the absolute best programs in Paulding County. If you've not had an opportunity to visit the Boys and Girls Club, it is truly just a phenomenal experience. They've been housed out of Matthews, right there in the old gym for several years, and I will tell you the support they provide our students through that program cannot be replaced. As a district, we already have plans set to do a fundraising campaign for the Boys and Girls Club with our employees. We invite the public to join in with us. But again, I cannot speak enough about the tremendous work of those who are running that Boys and Girls Club, the volunteers that support it, and the kids that attend there. So I'm in complete agreement, Ms. Lyons.
So if anyone does want to contact the Boys and Girls Club, Reiko is the director there, and she can give you, they actually have a GoFundMe account already set up, and you can contribute that way if you want to.
Mr. Dean?
You knew I was going to say something today. Again, thanks South Paulding and Paulding High School for the match. I've been trying to rotate them off and on. I'd like to thank everybody that showed up today to participate, to speak. Believe me, the board members listening, we may disagree on whether we should have our schedules and our calendars put out now, but we're working together, I think, as a community. As far as masks, I hate masks. I can't stand them. I wear them because I feel that we should set the standards as a board. If we say that we recommend them, then I think we should set the standards as a board. I just want to thank the community for getting involved. I hope we stay this way and can go further. And thank you, Steve, for answering most of my questions there. So that's all I had.
I just want to thank our staff, our students, and our parents, and our community, because it's taken everybody to try to come together this year to make this work. Not one group of those people could do it alone. And I appreciate the parents who've reached out, whether emails or post or text or called or attended here or spoke here, because there's going to be small issues, and hopefully those are the minority, and they can get resolved, but they can't get resolved unless you let us know about them. So I appreciate people letting us know about them so that they can be resolved, because you know, the superintendent can fix a lot of those things, but he can't fix them if he doesn't know about them. So just thank you for that involvement. We've seen an increase in communication both ways, and that's great. We've needed that, and I hope that continues. And also, as we come together and try to get through this, you know, we're not always going to agree. We have to represent 160,000 people. So there's been so many people who have contacted us who've been so respectful and professional, and I just appreciate that. And again, that's the majority. You may have a few from wherever that may not be respectful, but the majority have been very respectful, and it has brought our community closer together, I think, in communicating to help us resolve this. So as we put out, you heard us talking about we want input for calendars and stuff. Please be on the lookout for those things so that we can get the most feedback possible. Because Mr. Maggart mentioned the numbers on the last survey calendar, and you know, maybe about, I think he said 5,000 parents, 376 community members, 1,300 teachers, 485 students. In order for those to be accurate and get all the community involved in those decisions and let us know that we are representing you properly, we need those answers to come back so that the team can plan. And then, of course, we can continue to evaluate the plan as we move forward, and if it needs to be changed, we can do that. But again, I just thank you for everybody working up here, our staff at the school, buses, lunchroom maintenance, everybody. Just appreciate their hard work.
All right, the only thing I want to say too is thank you to the three of you that spoke this morning. I'm encouraged by the amount of public comments that we've had over the last 2 or 3 meetings, and which is something I know several of us have wanted to see, and that's more public participation. And the three of you that spoke this morning, thank you for speaking to us in a professional manner as well. Your comments will be taken under consideration, and as Mr. Chester said, I'll remind you that anything that you didn't get to say, please send that to us in an email or send it to Ms. Taylor, and we'll get that uploaded to our minutes if you didn't get to finish. I know 5 minutes is a very short time to probably say what you really want to say, and I'm sorry about that, but we have to keep that flowing. Also, thank you to our teachers and Dr. Otot and your team. We're still in challenges. I'm a parent of a McClure student, but I also am appreciative that there is still an opportunity for him to be able to go to school 2 days a week versus having to shut it down, like some of our fellow or sister counties have had to do. So I think we're doing a great job of maintaining that, and hopefully it won't be too long. Hopefully maybe they'll be back, Monday through Friday quicker than we know. So thank you to this community for coming together on some issues. As Mr. Dean said, there is disagreements. There will always be disagreements over certain things, but at the end of the day, it's about working together and trying to find a solution that's going to work. And as like I said, as a parent that has been affected by one of the 3 schools, we're going to do what we can to make that work. And I know I've got to work a little harder as a parent now to keep him focused, because he's going to want to sleep till noon on Wednesday and Friday, and that ain't going to happen. So anyway, thank you all so much. Right now, we're going to go ahead and adjourn into executive session. No votes will be taken other than the minutes from August 11th. We'll discuss personnel, hardship transfers, land, and legal. We're actually today, we're going to remain in this room. So all of you that are guests with us today, we're going to ask that you step outside. At this time, you're more than welcome to stay. Once we're done, you can come back in if you're interested for the final vote, which I believe the action agenda is just approval of personnel. And we're glad that you're here. And we'll go ahead and take a vote to move into executive session. So moved by Mr. Chester, second by Ms. Cobb. Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously, and we're adjourned to executive session. At this time, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Dr. Otot for the action.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion, Mr. Chester, go ahead.
I'll make a motion, we add an error mark item to the action agenda.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your hand. The agenda has been unanimously approved to adjust for earmark votes. And now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Otot. That'll be item B.
Mr. Chairman, I do request approval of personnel items 1 through 84.
Recommendation, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Chester, second by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously.
For item B, Mr. Chairman, if I can find my notes here, my apologies, is I would make a motion to request approval for final payment to Airmark for the period of July 1 through July 30th, 2019.
Hearing the recommendation, do we hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Chester, second by Mr. Dean. Any discussion?
Just to clarify, that payment is for a full and final settlement?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor, please show by raising your hand. Anyone opposed, please show by raising your hand. Motion passes 3-1. No, I'm sorry, 4-1. All right, at this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. So moved by Mr. Dean, second by Ms. Cobb. Any discussion? Please show by raising your hand to adjourn. Motion passed unanimously.